Yes, as you can see, this is my university where I'm at, Gießen University. I don't know if you know where Gießen might be located in Germany. It's somehow a little bit north of Frankfurt, which you all might know. And as I would say, a lovely town, small town over there. We have an Institute of Sports Science where we bachelor and master's study programs, also educating physical education teachers, and we have a middle-sized university institute there, middle-sized with respect to other institutes in Germany. Of course, there are larger ones like Cologne or Munich. There are also smaller ones, but we are on the middle-sized. We have 5 professors, and one of these professors is me, and I'm covering the fields of exercise science and motor control and learning. And this would also be the topic of the talk today, more on this motor control and motor learning topic. This talk will be actually okay, working this way. We actually have roughly 4 parts that I would like to present to you. First of all, we'll come up with some, I wouldn't call it theories, but prefer to call it explanatory concepts, some consequences with respect to perceptual limitations that we might have, then present you a study where we show that how motor noise influences motor learning, and the last part also present you some results on neurophysiological correlates of these processes. So, the first part. Let's start with a very simple situation. Imagine yourself being a race car driver over here. You have a perfect idea how you want to take this corner. You have a perfect planning of the apex and say, this is the line I want to go. So this is your expectation that you have. The blue line that you see, this is where you want to go. So if this is what you want to do, this is the desired effect that you want to produce it by operating on the steering wheel. By steering to the right. You can do it in the way by putting down the right hand, opening the left hand so it slides to the left hand, and pull down with the right hand, the steering wheel will turn to the right, and this movement part, this effectors, what you do with the effectors will in the world produce some kind of result. And how do you know if you did whether you did the right thing? You compare it with the desired effect, and this is the important thing of how you control your move, compare what actually happened, that was the red line, to what you intended to do, which is the blue line, and if there's a difference, you try to correct it. Do something different, try to change your steering movement in order to be on the track again. So this is the simple closed-loop model of how we control movement. And now, first, I want to start with, where is this comparison done? How much effort is it to compare this, to do this kind of closed-loop regulation of movements? Some say it's very simple because it happens in a simple reflex is also already such a closed-loop scenario, and so it happens at a low level of regulation. I will show you one example showing you that it's very high cognitive process involved in it. Okay, I forgot this. In order to do the correct thing, you said putting the right hand down, opening the left hand, then turn it around. This might not be sufficient if you detect that there's a difference here. In order to know what to do, you need to another thing. Let's call it a mechanism. The inverse model. Forget about the name. Just take it as a mechanism that produces a desired effect or desired difference compensation into the correct way to implement it on the effector side, either by putting down or putting lifting the left hand, just doing it in the correct way. This is some mechanism that does this. We did an experiment where subjects were operating on this machine, trying to produce forces on display, and they had to try to produce a sinusoidal force trajectory. They were looking at a screen. On the screen is this gray object, and this gray object is moving up and down depending on the difference of the produced force compared to the force that should be, or the target force that should be produced at that moment. Since the target force changed, the actual force the subject had to produce also had to change equivalently in order to keep this gray structure at the middle of the screen. So this was the tracking task subject had to perform by pushing with their legs. So we have a different condition where we have this task, this force tracking task, combined with the calculation task. The subject had presented at this gray area a calculation task, which usually took our subject around 6 to 10 seconds to solve it. So since the 10 seconds are over now, she should know the answer. She should know that this is 1678. So that was a task subject performed continuously. As soon as they answered, gave the answer to this test, they got the next pair of digits here. At the same moment, we also recorded the cortical activity by an infrared system that is somehow looking into the head. It's reflecting. Look how the brain under the skull reflects the infrared light. And depending on this, one can measure how much oxygenated blood is flowing in this area. This is somehow a measure of the amount of activity, cortical activity, is going on at this spot at the brain. So we were looking at this while subjects were doing this task. So what we observed is under the force-only condition compared to the force-plus calculation condition, we see higher movement errors in the force tracking task. You see, this is more challenging because they produce more difference from the target force profile as in the single task conditions. But how about the factors here reflecting cortical activity? Processing load. You can see this is comparison between the force condition and the force plus calculation condition. You see, it's always at the same level. This is not very surprising because we expect the subject to perform at their highest performance level whatever they do, because they try to do their best in any case. So they try to do the best, they try to bring in all the cognitive capacity that they have, with the effect that they lose in performance in this tracking task, because they had to assign part of their cognitive capacity to the calculation task. So somehow these two try to get access to the same resources, cognitive resources. The force tracking and the calculation task somehow project to the same resources. And if you compare this to another task, where you had something walking instead of the force tracking task, and also doing this walking at the same time as the calculation task, you see you also always have the same kind of processing going on in the brain. They're both combined. So we can say this is the calculation part, but there's a huge difference between walking and force tracking. Only walking has no requests on cognitive processing load, or cognitive processing. While force tracking, the tracking task, we have this all closed loop regulation going on, has some kind of strong request on the cognitive performance. So this can somehow be taken as evidence that there's something going on in this comparison. It's not at the low level, it's also at the high level. Is this comparison between the sine consequences and what your factors do is somehow relevant, is somehow computed in the brain, and is at a very high level, in some cases, evident. So, but this was a very simple situation. I will try to get more and more complicated in the way our models can describe. Because what we have is closed loop concept, where you have constant access to what's going on in the world, you have information on how you are in the world and what you want to do, always at the same time, always present. This is different in most of the situations that we regularly have. Like this one. Imagine There's a player here, he's trying to put in a cross to his striker here in the middle. What's going on? The ball is still rolling on its way, and he doesn't know exactly at that moment, it has to plan when to kick the ball, actually, and how the trajectory of the ball will be then to be at the right spot at the right time when the striker is in its position. In this task, there's no information available at that moment where he's actually performing now of his whether his performance is well underway or not, because the effect he wants to produce is in the far future. So he cannot control the effect against his own intentions because the effect is in the future. He's not already there. And this changes the way we have to look at this model. We have still the same things that we had previously. Now we're trying to make the same comparison, but the problem now is we have got all the elements present that we need for this comparison. Of course, we know what we want to do. We have to finally want to have the ball at the head of the striker here in the middle. But we have no information yet how the world is, because this is in the future. In order to solve this problem, there have been several ideas showing that you can solve this by bringing in another component in the model. This component is called the forward model that uses the efferent coding, that what you actually do with the movement, the efferent commands that you send to the muscles, use this to predict what will be the result in the future, without knowing the actual result yet. By doing that, you might already compare what you intend to what the prediction will be the outcome, and probably might already have some kind of error signal present. Of course, then when finally the feedback comes in, and you know the ball hits the forehead of the striker, then you have the full profile of comparisons going on, and you can then change the inverse model, change here, so that in the next try, there's no closed loop situation, you have no chance of correcting the ongoing try. If you have kicked the ball is on its way. You cannot change the flight trajectory afterwards. So all you can do is use the error signal to be better next time. So if you want all this information ready, you can do something to do it better next time. You can change the inverse model. But you can also use this information to change the forward model to have better prediction next time. But let's have a look which kind of comparisons are used here. Comparisons between what we have, the desired outcome and the actual outcome, but also the comparison between the desired outcome and the predicted one, and you can also use the difference between the actual outcome and the predicted one. What I will do in the next slide is show you some data that somehow shows that this kind of idea is more or less helpful to understand specific phenomena observed in the motor learning process. Phenomena that rely on the assumption that these kind of comparisons are very important for motor learning. It means how well you develop these inverse model performance models over time, over practice. Let's start again with a very simple example. These boys are trying their best to do a header. In order to learn, they have to do these comparisons that we did. So comparisons in the way that we discussed them. They have to bring in information on what they wanted to do. And let's assume this figure shows what we assume that they intend to do, because the trainer told them this is perfect dive, so do this. And that's actually what they wanted to do. But probably they, after leaving the start block, they might have the impression, it's not perfect, but I think this is what I'm actually doing. It feels, from my inner perspective, it feels like as I'm doing this. And if you compare the third source of information, that is some kind of progressive feedback that we have, giving you an impression of what you actually did. And in this kind of task, it usually is that you have a very, very bad feeling of how your hip angle is, what your feet are doing while you're on your way. So this is not very imprecise, this information. So in this comparison, meaning that these comparisons are not running too well. Meaning that you are not able to learn too much because these kind of differences that you need to build up for learning are corrupted by this irreliable information. I'll show you a quick experiment that shows this also in experimental setting, what was now only used for illustrative purposes. This is a study done by Mark Ernst in this group. This is the same thing. They have a subject, they have to do some pointing movements. While they do the pointing movement, there was an error introduced, there was a shift in the movement, and they looked at how fast the subject learned this, adapted to this change in the task. And there are two manipulations. In one case, they showed the location, the actual information, that was the feedback, where the actual location of the head was, in a blurred fashion like this one, or by a dot that was very precise. And what they observed is that the learning rate depended on the size of this, of the precision of this information on the actual position of the hand. If there was imprecise information, they learned slower. This is error, they decrease their error, but the decrease is slow if you have imprecise information. If you have precise information, you're learning faster. So this is only a demonstration of what I tried to explain, tried to introduce in the first place. Say we need precise information in order to learn fast. But this is information on the perceptual side. Let's have a look at the precision of information at the, okay, now let's have this first. What can I do to work against this problem? Yeah, try to make information more precise. If there is insufficient precision in the information about your body, you don't have a good feeling of your hip angle and the golf movement, or know how far you bend over, then you try to help out by recording and use these persons better, more precise information. So provide external objective feedback might help to have better learning. Doing either internally after he's now done his strike, it's time to look at it and he gets the information he needs. But there are also ways to do it. Concurrently, at the same time, this is a way to try to give information on body parts that is actually not good at judging where they are. Yeah, but as the literature on that recommends, you should not do this every time. You should reduce feedback in order to just foster the internal information processing, not dependent on this external feedback. So this is what actually is recommended by the literature on motor learning with respect to improving the content of information by making it more precise. As I said, let's now look at the other side, not at the precision of the perceptual information, but at the precision of the motor commands. Let's take this as an example. Here we have a fighter. He's shooting at the target. Let's make a first shot, and if he does his first shot, you see, oh, don't miss. What should I do? It was to the left. Was it just noise, just pure chance that this shot went to the left? Let's try another one. Oh, again to the left. What should I do? Should I now start to correct my sight of the gun? So let's have a look at the sight of what is sighted. Maybe I should change the side of the depth by shot, because there's something that's not pure chance, like I see as it is. Or should I still keep my original one is interpret this as only pure chance, that all 2 shots went to the left. You could do this for as many trials as you like, but the 3rd trial, then it might also be left. So the question is, when to correct? The 1st shot, the 2nd shot, the 3rd shot. When would you start to believe there's something systematic? And if there's something systematic, a systematic deviation, you should start to correct. Otherwise, if it's unsystematic, just keep on shooting. Next time, the random error will bring you on target again. So, how can we detect systematic deviations? In order then to adapt to this and correct them in next trial, future trials. Let's demonstrate another example. Let's assume there's someone shooting at his target. Let's assume he wants to try this upper left hole, and he's shooting several times, and this might be the result. He's not very good at it. Let's assume there's another person. Let's first look what does it mean for the comparison. You have some kind of desire. He always has the same intention. I have this one, so the intention is clearly fine. Maybe it's not very clear, since he knows that he's not perfect in shooting, that he said, oh, if I'm trying to shoot there, the ball might go somewhere, I'm not quite sure where it will go to, so there's some kind of imprecision in the expectation, but of course there's also required always a different outcome. And the difficulty for this person is to judge from these comparisons what to do. To judge whether something should be done, should the whole target be shifting more to the left because there's a systematic deviation of the shots to the right, lower right part, or not. This is the decision the system has to do in order to adapt or not. Now let's look at another person. Just trying to shoot at the target. But now she's much more expert at it. Which very more precision in the shots. It always tries to nicely around the target. In our comparison, this means that the difference from trial to trial, the outcome, is very small. So now you can have a faint idea, oh, there might be something that should be shifted outwards. This is only possible because the information here is more precise. More precise because every shot is more precise. It's under better control. So, our idea is systematic errors can be detected faster if something has lower noise. They're less scattered in repeated trials. And we also assume that if they do, they are able to adapt faster with lower noise than subjects that have higher uncertainty in the things that they may do. They're more control, less motor control. I would push it one step further before I show you some results on the way we try to test this hypothesis. Let's assume someone is trying to throw at this target repeatedly. You could do it in different ways. You could do it in a way just trying to have a high arc and try to center of the target. You could do it in a low arc or in a medium arc. Which way to do best? Which one would you select? We say that's easy. When you have to look at the cast characteristic in this kind of cast, you can reduce it to a release angle, release velocity problem. You can say, if I release here, I will have hit the target. I can also hit the target here, or I can also hit the target here. So this cast is redundant because you have several solutions that bring you on one target. But of course, there are differences in these three locations. The difference is in that moment when you assume that there is noise. If there is noise, you see that there is a difference in these trajectories. The same amount of scatter, you will have some misses here with the high arcing trajectory, and also with the blue with the low arcing trajectory, but with the medium trajectory, you will be on target all the time. So this way of doing this is more tolerant to motor error, to motor change would happen if you now select this one as being the optimal one, because more tolerant, and now someone tilts the target. What happens? This changes the situation. If you have the same analysis of the task as plot of angle and velocity, where you want to be what, where you see that you're here with the green trajectory, the medium wave trajectory, you're here. You see, here, the task is more tolerant. So if someone tilts the target, you'll be better at this location. Now switch again to the lower one. So this is an adaptation that is necessary, it might be helpful, accepting that the tolerant region of the task has changed. And our question was, are subjects sensitive to this? And also, does the sensitivity to this depend on the motor noise? Do subjects adapt faster if they have less motor noise than subjects that have higher motor noise? So, before I show you the experiment and the results, let's look first at that. The task that we use, this is what we call the spinning task. Imagine the ball depending on the pole. You push it around the pole, it swings and tries to hit the target on the other side. This is set up in a virtual environment in our case. So this is where you accelerate the ball by operating the lever. Opening the finger contact, you let the ball, you release the ball is going on this trajectory around the post that's at the target, and it has to hit the target on the other side. I'll also show you a live example of this. This is how the task looks like. You see subjects operating in the lever. You see how this moves in the virtual environment, and to swing it around the center, it has to hit the target on the other side. And if you just now plot again the solution space of this task, again it has release angle and release velocity, because these are the only parameters where the outcome depends on. You can see that we again have a task that is redundant. We have different solutions. All the white areas are solutions, meaning that they hit the target. You can hit the target by using 140 degrees and 4 meters per second. So you can also hit the target by releasing 80 degrees and 3 meters per second. We have now implemented what we call a sweet spot here. In this area here, the target is tolerant with respect to noise. Here, in this part, you have, as soon as you're up with the white part, you will not hit. Here, the deviation has to be larger to leave the white area, meaning that the deviation has to be larger to not hitting it. So I will show you an example of what subjects do regarding the first question, if subjects are able to. Okay. And what we did in the experiment, we switched it as the same way as I said, you can tilt the target. In the same way we switched the tolerant location in our task by doing some manipulation, and then by this we shifted to another location. And our question was whether subjects are sensitive to this, and I show you quick data that from a single run. This is a subject operating at this view at this sweet spot. He has found it, and now trying to be there. Now it switches. It takes some time until the subject detects. This depends on the noise of the subject, how much they vary in the release. Subject with low variance, in this case, almost the same performance in every case. They have faster adaptation than subjects that have high scatter in the day. That's what these ones deal with a high standard deviation in release angle. This was some kind of first hint that this might be a good idea. To follow this, we did another experiment to try to even put this into an experimental setting, to have it experimentally controlled. In order to do so, we introduced another aspect. Not only noise as one source of variability, but there might be another source of variability. Noise means subject always trying to do this one. This is the intention what they're trying to do. And we observe that we observe this angle is some scatter around. And deviation between those two is what we saw, I think, is uncontrolled noise. But it might also be the case there's another source of variability. You can assume that something might intentionally change the target. Let's say, let me try how the task works if I shift it by 5 degrees to the left or right. It doesn't have to be necessarily conscious, but maybe the internal reference value that something trying to achieve might change over practice. Then we have two sources of variability. One being the uncontrolled fluctuations, difference between the intended parameter and the actual parameter that we observe, and the second source being the variability of the internal reference. And as I mentioned here, the work of Van Beers, he showed the possibility to separate this by Hermann Müeller procedure, that you can have separated the content of the what he called R contribution to variability and the Q contribution to variability, meaning variability of internal reference. Let's come to the predictions. If we have tried to find variability, and we have the QQ part, that means the shift of the internal reference value. What do you expect? If someone has high variability in internal reference, you would say it will be slow adaptation because he's not willing to change very much. He's a kind of conservative guy. A conservative guy takes long to adapt. Also, on this side here, if someone who is not conservative, is progressive, then he might be changing fast, but also he might be trapped into the fault of being too early in this direction and being prone to noise. Let's look at the other side, the noise part. What would you expect if someone has low, uncontrollable noise? Then he doesn't change much from trial to trial. Means he doesn't explore the task very much. There's slow adaptation because he has no idea how the task will look outside the region where he's actually operating it. But he has precise control. The control might enable fast adaptation. So we don't know, right, if it's good or bad to have high noise or low noise. And that's what we actually try to find out in experiment. By having some kind of several subjects doing hundreds of trials where we do this shifting of the tolerance region by 15 degrees from trial to trial, from block to block, and we wanted to see how fast it takes subjects to adapt to it. So we were unaware of this shift, and we detected the time it took for subject to adapt by having a criterion, and the subject somehow reached it, and some kind of came close to it, the statistical criterion when we said this is the moment where we assume that adaptation is complete. By this, we're looking at this kind of task at different predictions. Either subjects might have reaction low noise, might have better control, and feedback might be more reliable, so that's why we assume that it should be faster adaptation, or we also have that some high nodes are faster because they have larger exploration and they profit more from being in the tolerant area, because with this large scatter they have more benefit of being in. So it's ambiguous. We didn't know what will come out if we now experimentally manipulate the amount of noise. You see, what is red is what the subject actually experienced in the experiment. What is gray is what they actually did. So we have one group we capped the error to a certain limit, and the other way we expanded it to a certain limit. We have subject having low air noise and high noise experimentally manipulated. So we see here we have some different manipulation checks to see that nothing else changed by manipulations. Neither the average release velocity nor the average release angle. And finally, the question was, Which group adapts faster? The one with the low noise or the one with the high noise? What we actually observed is it's the low noise group. This is the group that is faster in adaptation. So back to the explanations that they say it's this problem that shows to be true. It's the precise control, not the exploration, that helps it to be fast. Exploration is not helpful because you don't know what you're doing, even if you come to a solution. Imagine that you throw in the basketball, you're in the mid-interval contest, and you throw it for the middle line, ball goes in, perfect. All you have to do is do it again and again. But you cannot, because you have no good control. So what you need is precise control in order to be able to learn. To sum it up, high variability might be beneficial for the learning as intended in the variability vectors accounts, but this is only limited to the controllable variability, something that you intentionally bring in. The noise, something that you cannot control, is not helpful to learn. Just imagine someone starts playing tennis, has this racket, and if these two girls change the rackets, they say, this doesn't bother me. The same with both rackets. If this guy, with his high expertise, changes the racket, saying, this is to totally change my game, something completely different. A total breakdown of my game. Because he feels, he's sensitive for this little difference, because they are not. And he is easily able to adapt within a few trials to this new sweet spot of the racket by. These are not, because they don't even feel the difference. Let me come to a last part of the talk. We have this model, and we have the idea that feedback from the world might be delayed. And we have this fault model operating to try to jump in and allow comparisons earlier, even before the information of the world comes in. Is this possible or not? There are indications that actually this is the case. In a lot of psychological experiments like this one, Blanket House, subjects have to react to this kind of display. They often have to push the button to where the inner center arrow points at, so it points to the left, you have to push the left button. If you now present something with this kind of display, they sometimes make an error because they be distracted from the outer ones. So they push the right button instead of the left one, which they should press. In these cases, you can observe in the EEG, in the cortex, there's error signal that we see in this trial. Where you make an error, there's negativity shortly after onset. It's this early, they cannot be explained. Be the processing, be reflecting the processing of error information on the feedback. So there has to be some kind of internal error information that has to be processed there. If you try to transfer this to sport situations, you would have this guy here thrown it at the target, and at this moment where the ball has left his hand, he's the only one in the whole arena that already knows if the game is won or lost. He can do a bet and say, I put all my money on winning or loss because he's the only one, he knows it because he has internal information. He might have this internal peak here to say, tell me this was going wrong. So he knows that the shot is going, the ball kind of is even before the ball is at the target. And the question is, can we observe this? Is there something in an athlete or subject telling him some kind, not necessarily conscious, but telling the system something going wrong even before the outcome is fixed? And that's what we try in experiments. Again, with our skills task, we used EEG, subject now did in sitting position, but it was the same task. And we had subject doing it 7 times. And this was actually what we observed. There's a moment even before, here's this line represents the moment where external feedback is available. We see whether the ball hits or not. This is here. But here, even 200 milliseconds after ball release, you have also in these stripes, the red ones, we have you're not hitting the target, negativity, showing that somehow the system internally knows something is going wrong, even before the output is fixed. There's information in the world that something goes wrong. So this is an indication that really this internal model idea, that this internal prediction has some value because you see these phenomena. We also found something additional. Also found that the amplitude of this negativity, so the way of how strong the system says something is going wrong, depends on the expertise. Subjects that have high expertise, hitting with a high percentage, means 80% of the target, they have a lower amplitude here, showing that this negativity is stronger. So that means they have a higher error-related negativity. The effect is stronger for subjects that have high expertise. So what do we know from that? This error-related negativity can be observed also in these complex goal-oriented movements that they have in sports. This error-related negativity scales with expertise. Subjects that have higher expertise, have higher performance, they show this in a strong way. They have this forward model developed to a stronger path. So what can we do with that, with this knowledge? We can now use this negativity that we observe in the EEG as an indication of how strong the forward model is developed in a person. To see how we can design learning process in a way to faster improve this kind of crucial element of the learning process. So an inaccurate forward model might be an additional detrimental factor in motor learning in clinical populations. We have clinical populations that have very bad control of their movement. They have high noise, and they have also, depending on the high noise, bad expectation of what actually happens if they move there, because they have does something different every time it moves. So they are also hampered in their learning. They are not only hampered in their control, they are hampered in their learning because they have bad forward model and low high motor noise. These are all factors that decrease the amount of learning. So they are two ways affected by their bad motor control. So what can we take home from this? So this was the theoretical idea I wanted to present to you today. The idea that there might be a delay in this kind of availability of the feedback from the internal world. In this case, also other sources of information are relevant for these comparisons that we need in order to have motor learning going on. So we should look at these comparisons, but not only at this comparison between the desired outcome and the actual outcome as we did so far, but perhaps we should also look at the other two and also have this forward model taken into account. The internal prediction is an important part of the motor learning process. So for now, these are my collaborators that worked out with me on this project. Have been funded in different ways, in different funds by the German Research Foundation. There's a lot of money going in there, a lot of people working in it. Thank you for your attention for today. Thank you.